So, welcome everyone to another episode of the Awakened Woman podcast, where we delve into the inspiring stories of individuals who have overcome adversity and transformed their lives. Today, we have a truly extraordinary guest joining us, and I will tell the story of how we connected because that's also very interesting. So, we have Tori Jenae. So, Tori, who has not only conquered her own childhood trauma and emerged as a force of inspiration, but has also dedicated herself to empowering millions of people to do the same. As a trauma survivor, Tori turned as a energy therapist and business money mindset coach. And Tori's journey is one of resilience, growth, and profound transformation. So I'm so grateful to have you here, Tori, and welcome to the Awakened Woman podcast.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. I'm
So
so excited to be
the
here.
yeah, thank you. So I wanted to also mention how we came to be in this podcast together because it's also a very interesting story. And I will say as a sign of the universe when when we are meant to connect with people, when we are meant to learn from each other. So I was recommended a podcast where Tori was also the guest speaker, and then it was a podcast around manifestation, healing, trauma, and Tori was sharing her inspiring story, and I just loved the podcast. I was like, this woman is so powerful, this woman is so inspirational, and I have a lot of things in common with you, which is the trauma informed side, being coaches, being very much into personal development, spirituality, manifestation. I saw on that podcast that you also went through like Buddhism side and meditation teacher and yoga. So I love all those topics. I think it's kind of like where we start when we start in the spirituality journey. So then I just reach out to Tori genuine to share my feedback on the podcast, and she's so lovely, such a beautiful woman, and we started just connecting and the conversation really flowing, and I was like, I feel a really good energy, so I asked her to be in the podcast, and now we have the privilege to have her here. So I will try to make the most out of these minutes or couple of minutes that we will be together to get all your wisdom, to get all your knowledge, and most importantly, to learn from your story. So I would love to if you want to share with the audience a little bit about your story until before we get delve into all these topics of healing, trauma. What is trauma? That's a term that is being like coming up a lot more recently. Even I would say more impactful after COVID. That was
Mm.
a collective trauma that we all went through and are now also experiencing and the consequences of that. So, yeah, I would love you to share because I know a little bit about your story. How was that? How did you manage to turn around a very challenging upbringing where you had to take on very adult responsibilities for your family, for your mom, and be where you are at now? Is so inspirational.
Oh, well, thank you. I love to share my story to help people understand that it's different when you have a challenging upbringing or a lot of challenges in life to build success. And so it's never really about me, but I do love to share that, I was born to a single mom who struggled with addiction, like most until she pretty much until she passed. So that was her entire life. And we were on and off, state assistance, which in the United States we call welfare.
Yeah.
So it's basically where, you're poor and they gave you money. And so we went on and off that. My mom had multiple marriages. Most of the men that she would marry would also struggle with addiction. Um, Kindergarten through seventh grade, I think I went to 7 or 8 schools. So I would change schools every single year. So there was just so much trauma and so much impact. Like, it's the tip of the iceberg, but, a lot of neglect. And then there would be times of abuse. And there would just be so much intensity. And it is sometimes you look back and you're like, how did I get through that? But there was this like kind of drive in me. One was I always wanted to be good. And I think I had this connection to something higher. And I always wanted to make a better choice. And I think what drove me was actually trying to take care of my mom, because I did love my mom, even though it was a very challenging relationship. You know, we will talk more about spirituality here. So I know she was my greatest teacher, because she was
Mhm.
my greatest trigger.
Yes.
um, well into my 30s, I had to do a lot of healing work on her,
Yeah.
and a lot of, you know, a lot of women can relate with that. Even if your experience wasn't as deep as mine, it doesn't mean that it wasn't challenging and it didn't create a lot of difficulty for you. You know, it affects our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves. And I grew up in such an incredibly negative environment that coming through that, you know, I kind of had to hide out and just get through it.
Hmm.
And by the time I was 17, I left home. And during that time, I also helped take care of my little brother, who I just adore. He's like my child. And we had a grandma who also helped take care of us. So that was, you know, we had some shining light in those moments of darkness for sure. Of course, that's what resilience is if we have one person that cares about us, they show in psychological research that will actually help us move forward.
Hmm.
But the, you know, fast forwards of my story of where we are today, I'm the oldest living woman in my family. My mother has passed away from drugs. My oldest sister passed away as well. My father's passed away. So everyone in the last 10 years, my entire, you know, immediate family has all passed away. And there's been a lot of those due to substance abuse. So I stand, you know, I speak before everyone as completely sober woman. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol in 22 years. I knew that growing up the way I did, I was going to have to make dramatically different choices than my family did. So I never touched any substances from the time, you know, even when I was 21 in California, United States, that's when we get to go to the bars. I never cared. I was like, I can't do that. And I was also studying psychology, so I understood the genetic aspects of it and was like, okay. But what really transformed me in my, you know, a lot of successful people have trauma and they don't even know it. And that's actually what's driving them.
Yeah.
And then when we heal the trauma, we can have, so that's kind of what drove me to my spiritual journey, waking up, doing the healing work. And that's what we're going to talk about today is what is trauma? What is the money mindset work? And I'm happy to share how all of that transformed for me, because before I did all this work, I would take care of everyone. I put myself last. I never had savings. I was just
Wow.
all the things, codependent, you name it.
Yeah, you name it. Yeah, all the patterns, like once we delve into
Yes.
all this world of what trauma really is, which we will get into that,
Yes.
is when we realize, okay, yeah, when we think we don't have trauma, or when we think, yeah, okay, I've overcome, or yeah, that's okay, I had difficulties, but I put them under the rug and I'm okay now. We The more we delve into it, the more we realize, okay, we have so many different patterns, like the ones you mentioned, like neglect, emotional, abandonment, that then we have the rejection wounds, then we have the inner child wounds, and we have all the core wounds that I'm not enough, I'm not lovable. So you grow up in a, with a lack of stability and
Yes.
safety in your household.
Yeah.
So that probably also impacted that your adulthood, bringing unstable situations as well. So it's really powerful to listen to your story, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. I just want to say that as well. Thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing.
thank you.
I Yeah, I deeply value everyone's stories, and you being here sharing with us. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that and validate what you went through. um as I said, you use those challenges and that pain and that difficulty and those struggles as a way to inspire you to actually choose something different. Unfortunately, not many people have that privilege, and it's beautiful to also learn from the mindset of the people who are able to turn around their lives. So that's why being here with you and just learning from your story is already inspiring, it's already impactful. So, one thing that came to me that I would like to know before we delve into other topics is the part of addiction. I think that's kind of like a really yeah, impactful in our society, in the sense that you had all the ingredients there to follow a similar path because you didn't know anything different. And
Absolutely.
so how was that for you? Like, in what moment you remember that you made that decision, you know what? I'm not gonna follow the same story as my family. I'm not gonna touch any substance. I'm just gonna go and, do a better life for myself. Yeah, how
Yeah,
did
no, that's a
that
great
look?
question. Actually, I've never been asked that before. So,
Yeah.
it was actually a big turning point, because of course, in high school or, like teenage years, I kind of messed with like, having some drinks and that, the normal stuff that kids do.
Yeah.
And I smoked cigarettes and, I think I even tried weed once and I wasn't very good at it. But what really scared me was both my mother and my sister had been to jail.
Right.
And I was turning 18, and that's when I decided if I even mess with this stuff, I've seen what happens. Like I've seen lives be ruined, I've seen people, get arrested. I've seen such bad things that I was like, I have to completely cut all of this out of my life. And I know that, and I say that like by the grace of God, somehow I was able to make that decision. My older sister was not. She went down the path of addiction. And I know for all of us and anyone who's listening who deals with someone who has addiction or themselves, addiction is our only answer to dealing with pain in the moment. It's the best way that we know how. Like my mother was so strong as well, and she really was a survivor. And I can't believe she was able to do what she did with the addictions that she had. But she had tons and tons of trauma as well.
Yeah.
Her mother had overdosed and, just all like horrible things that happened to her. And so that cycle of difficulty, like even if it didn't happen to us or our parents, sometimes it happened to our parents. And then that cycle of trauma and negativity from the family stuff passes down. So
Definitely, generational trauma is so strong. Like we see that, and yeah, like some of us come here to actually break that generational trauma and break that story and change that story for our family. So your mission here on earth is so powerful and beautiful because even though most of your family are not here, you were able to heal that for yourself and for them and for future generations that come. So yeah, it's so inspiring. I agree with the part that you say, like, sometimes with addiction, the pain of being addicted is not as strong as the pain of having to deal with your repressed pain from childhood, right? From the difficult situations that you went through. So I learned that from Gabor Mate, who is like,
absolutely.
right, like, and he often like says, if someone is going through addiction and is finding it difficult to release that addiction, is bringing that compassion, that understanding that that person is being using substances because they have so much pain that sometimes it's so hard to really feel it. Sometimes it's really hard to be being with themselves without any substance because they have to deal with it. So when I learned that, that definition, it brought way more compassion and understanding to people going through addiction. So I think it's beautiful that we are also bringing that light into this conversation. That a person is not going through addiction because they want a terrible life for themselves and they want to be
Yeah,
addicted. It's not about that. It's about the underneath need, which is some relief, and that's what substance brings to them. So
absolutely.
thank you
It's
so
the
much
best
for
way they've
sharing.
found to solve the problem. Yeah, I just always, because obviously I grew up around a lot of addiction, so I've seen the dark side of it, and I know that they don't want it and they
Yeah.
hate themselves for being in those situations. But the pain of, like even when I've dealt with clients who've had past addiction, I'm always like, we don't just need to focus on the addiction itself. Like, of course, you want to get clean, you want to stay alive, but you also have to deal with the real reason why you have addiction. Of course, there's the physical aspect, that is true, the brain, the body, but there's something that's happened often, like 99.9% of the time, that has created that choice. And another thing too is the addiction may not be drugs. We may be doing shopping or love addiction or food addiction. So there, that word is also I, for me in my work, is very expansive. I have clients who are, that I've worked with clients who are addicted to work, and that's how they're
Yes.
running from the stuff that's in here.
100%, and so good that we are also mentioning this because addiction is not only substance abuse, is we are also talking about the all different kind of addiction. So anything that is avoiding what is like the discomfort, that the painful emotions, the challenges we went through in childhood, anything that is, trying to repress all that is the problem is it will be amplifying that pain. So the more we
Absolutely.
avoid it, the more we don't validate it. So um what will be like one of the key aspects when you are working with someone going through addiction, and again, this can be any sort of addiction, that you think when we work on this, people, most likely will overcome the addiction? Like, let's say self-love or self-compassion, self-acceptance. What will be that key ingredient, key factor for you, for someone who is going through addiction, to overcome that?
To believe that they're worthy
Yeah.
and worthy of love and connection is usually the primary issue.
Wow.
Disconnects us from ourselves, it disconnects us from others, and we need that. We know that loving connection creates oxytocin, so does addiction. It's the
Yes.
same. So we want that. There's a great saying, like, sometimes we treat food as our mother because food releases those same chemicals that we would have got from a loving embrace from our own mother. And so imagine what a substance or gambling or something else is giving us, those brain chemicals and those addictions. So I don't work with people in active addiction because my work requires that someone is stable energetically so that they can heal and go into the past stuff. But yeah, I'm always looking at how can I help them feel so worthy and so aligned that they let the good stuff in, because we subconsciously punish ourselves when we think we were bad or we
Yeah.
did bad things or we're not on the right path, and we all do that to ourselves. I think there isn't a human on the planet who doesn't need to upgrade our own worthiness. Like, and
100%.
myself included, I'm always working on it.
Always, yeah. And we were actually saying with Tori before we started recording that the more we know, the less we know. So, like when we start all this journey, and same with healing, the more we start healing, the more we realize there's more here, but not from a place that, oh, I'm never gonna be enough. So I want you to, I like just make clear that point. Is more from a place that there's always things that we can improve as human beings, knowing that as a core, the core being of yourself is enough as how you are, as who you are. It's just removing these wounds, removing these blocks, removing the beliefs, removing the stories that you have told yourself of why you are not enough. That's what healing
Exactly.
is. It's just coming back to your real essence. Your real essence is enough, worthy, lovable, capable, just powerful. So thank you. Yeah. So this is such good conversations. And the other thing, just before we jump into the trauma part, we want to define what trauma is for us, because we've been touching a lot on trauma, and then we want people to understand what trauma means for you, for me. It means different for everyone. So addiction, when I was getting into, like, Gabor Mate, and going through like all these definitions, is what you said is someone think like believing is not the fact that they are not worthy. So addiction creates this disconnection with the self, that what healing does is bringing that connection back. So connection, love, self-acceptance, self-compassion. So really is starting to love yourself, understanding that you are not your addiction, that that substance is not who you are, that at the core you are following or doing that as a way of meeting a need. So how can we meet that need in other ways? And that's how, like, working with someone like Tori, or a psychologist or therapist, will help them. I personally don't work with addiction either, so maybe someone who's
Yeah, it's
already
a
overcome addiction.
it's a beautiful thing to do, but same thing. Personally, I've not overcome addiction in the way that most people, need that help. And that's what creates the expertise, is you walking the fire.
Exactly. You said it so like so powerful there. Like that's right. We cannot really understand what someone with addiction is going through, and the challenges, the pain, if we haven't been there. So definitely I will also look for working with someone who's been going through the same and has overcome that. So getting more into the topic of trauma, we've mentioned that a few times. What does trauma means to you, Tori?
Yeah, I believe trauma is any experience that's really disconnected you from yourself and from the feeling of safety. And so that can be little things, like a highly critical mother who constantly told you, made you feel like you weren't enough, right? You don't feel safe in your body. You don't feel good about yourself. Maybe you had financial trauma, meaning that, I grew up in poverty. That created a lot of issues with money. To me, money meant pain and stress and not enough, and for other people, money might have meant control. So trauma is this experience of, it can be attached to anything, but it's not what we think of. Trauma is chronic stress. Trauma is a divorce, a breakup, your pet dying, losing a family member. What we think of trauma is we think of someone getting in a car accident, getting mugged, or like the West in the United States, our definition of trauma is kind of like my experience, like
Hmm.
having neglect, abuse, physical, being beat up, those kinds of things. That's what we see
Yeah,
as trauma. And of
exactly.
course, that is trauma. And there are some people use like capital T and little t to differentiate. And some people don't like that because they think that it's categorizing traumas. So what I will say is that, has everyone had trauma? Absolutely. Have some people had massive amounts that are much harder to overcome? Of course. So I liken it to like the small T's, the littler traumas. It's like, you fell off your bike and you scraped yourself up, and that hurts and it's awful, but you're going to heal faster.
Hmm.
If you got into a car accident and you broke half the bones in your body, it's going to take a while to get over that. And that's kind of how I see the bigger traumas, like versus, like what, similar to what I've been through, to what other people have been through, or, different experiences, right? It's just the healing process can look different, and there's a different level of lack of safety within the body. The nervous system is more sensitive, and may always be a little bit more sensitive than someone who grew up in more stable home and had some things that anchored them, but it doesn't negate or take away the pain that that person had. And that's what's really funny, is a lot of my clients will talk to me and they know my story a little bit, and they'll be like, I feel bad even complaining to you. And I'm like, no, like this is, I want to validate your pain, because even though your trauma doesn't look like mine, it still it's causing blocks in your life. It's causing you pain. It's causing problems in your relationship. It's causing problems in how you see yourself. It's causing problems in how you're allowing good to come to you. So it's the same. My journey just looks different because I had a different level of trauma.
Exactly. Yeah, the story might be different, but the wounds are similar. So, as you say, it's not a competition of whose trauma is
Mm-mm.
bigger and whose pain is bigger, because at the end we want to is validating the experiences. That's what we need. And yeah, I love that definition. I think that's really powerful. And just to add to what you say, also trauma is not receiving what you needed. So no, it's not necessarily always what happened to you, but it's also what you didn't receive. So let's say that you were very distressed at school when you were a child, and your friends were bullying you, and then you came home and expressed that to your parents. And then if you had a parent that didn't know how to deal with emotions and with difficult situations, and they say, oh, just get over it, it's gonna be fine, just man up, and just fight back, then you grow up with a wound where you didn't really address that bullying, that pain, that hurt, that created a lower self-esteem, a low self-confidence, and then as well not receiving that emotional nurturance and that emotional support. So as you said, it can be anything, little
Yeah. And
things.
that's where the disconnection from the self happens, right? It's like, I think Gabor Mate is the one who says that the trauma isn't always about what happened. It's about what you start to believe about life and yourself after it happens. And that's true, because for some people, I've been through some really hard things, but I have a good perspective about it afterward. And another person might have a completely different perspective, right? I kind of think
That's
like,
right.
wow, I've been through all these things and they've helped me become such a great helper in the world. You know what I mean? And other people who've been through similar things would think, wow, why is this happening to me?
Exactly. This is so powerful, and thank you for mentioning this. I think it's about the stories that we create when those challenging and painful situations happened. I think
Yeah. And
that's
I've had my why me moments, don't get me wrong. I've
yeah,
wondered,
yeah.
I've I've prayed to the universe and been like, what is my karma? Like what?
Yeah,
I,
I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. After what you've been through and all the amazing work you've done, not only on yourself, of course, but also the ripple effect and the impact that you have created on others by your own stories is so beautiful. So it's so, yeah, so inspirational to see how some people can also use those challenges as a way of, instead of why this is happening to me, like why this is happening for me, what are the lessons. I know at the start, because some people might say, oh, how can I see the lessons when I'm going through so much pain, is
yes,
actually allowing yourself to feel the pain, allowing yourself to validate what you are going through, because what happens is you are avoiding, you are um neglecting your also that situation because it's so painful. So it's learning to address those challenging aspects of what we live at some point in our life. Is the more we suppress, the more it intensifies the pain, and at some point it will come up in some ways, and usually like in our intimate relationships. That's
always.
how, yeah, our
I always
unresolved
see it
trauma.
in, I always joke it comes in your love and your money, and if it doesn't get you there, it will get you in your health.
There you go. Exactly.
Because the ACEs study in the United States was a study done by Kaiser Permanente, which is a medical organization here, hospitals, right?
Mm,
And they were curious about trauma and how it impacted not only mental health, but physical health. So they
yeah.
did a large study over time and they had people answer 10 questions. Did you have these 10 traumas? And they found that if you had four or more, your likelihood of having heart disease went up 400%.
Wow.
Your likelihood of addiction went up 300%. Like the stats are crazy. So with clients, I give them a version of the ACEs, so I know what their potential is. So that's another thing you can Google is the ACEs test, and it will tell you what level of trauma you've actually experienced. Because a lot of us
Oh,
don't think we have trauma.
yes. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And that's what we
Yeah.
were talking, because there's such like that, it's such a taboo, this word, right? Like trauma. It sounds like it's just a word. It's actually what's the meaning you are given to the word. It is yeah, it's like there's misconception in our society, and the more we talk about it, the more we bring light into it, the more people will understand. And we were saying with Tori, like when someone usually says, I don't have trauma, that's when you know, okay, you have to deal with something there, because everyone has at some degree some sort of trauma. Even if you
Yeah.
were bullied by your brothers, your siblings, your friends, like, or you on a weekend your parents were gonna go on a weekend away without kids, they left you at your grandma's, and then you created an abandonment wound. It could be those simple things that we see, we don't even remember, because a lot of the times when we go through very challenging situations at up until the age of 7, that's when most of our trauma is created, our beliefs, our belief system, our stories, our identity. We kind of like suppress that in our subconscious, and is when we start doing the healing work, we start going into the subconscious, we start bringing up situations, what are the beliefs that I created, that we realize, oh, actually, yes, the belief I created here is that you know I'm gonna be abandoned by my loved ones, or no one loves me, or I'm not worthy. So it's those stories that are really like into our subconscious, that is when we start doing this work, come up. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's
um
tough.
yeah, it's tough, and it's beautiful as well. I always
Oh
like to
yeah,
put the
no.
duality of it, right? Because it
It
is
is
tough.
it is
Yeah.
freeing. It's tough
Yeah.
to start it, but at the end you're always so glad you did it. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
who I am if I hadn't. And, that's how we take ourselves out of that victim consciousness of why did all this stuff happen to me? Through that healing journey, we start to turn our pain into our power and into our purpose. And that's the journey of it.
exactly. And the person we become throughout the process. So for me, it's like it's about the journey itself, not the destination. It's like the person you become and all the amazing things that you start attracting into your life as you start doing the inner work. So as we expand internally, we expand externally. For me, like outer success has been all like genuine outer success is a reflection of my inner success.
Hmm.
And I was reading this book that the more you want to expand your consciousness and expand your outer reality is coming and tapping into yourself and expanding yourself in different ways, healing, learning, helping others, impacting others, like trying to do things beyond your concept of self, in the sense of like we are here able to yeah, collaborate and impact others as well. And that's the beautiful part of this journey. So Tori, as a trauma informed business and money mindset coach, how do you see trauma impacting an individual's relationship with money and their ability to succeed in business?
Yes, I actually feel like we all have a relationship with money, and just how our negative experiences and traumas can affect our relationship with others, it's doing the same thing with money. And so it really impacts success. And I feel like if I could go back before I started my business in 2012 and do anything, I would have done more money mindset work first. Like that is like the one advice I have is like, I wish I would have healed my money stuff, because when our money stuff is not healing, we don't know how to save, we don't know how to spend, we don't know, our relationship is messed up. Like I'll see people who can manifest huge amounts of money, but then they'll manifest the same amount of expenses
Yeah.
and it's all gone, or they can't make money, or they feel bad charging, or all this. There's so much stuff about our money that comes from our past, because our net worth is based on our self-worth. And if we don't do that inner work to heal receiving, it affects our love and it affects our money. It's the same, it's all ruled by the second chakra. It's the same energy. So
Mm,
if we have a difficulty with support, receiving, asking for things, that's going to show up everywhere. We won't be able to sell. We won't be able to get visible. We won't be able to ask for to be paid. We won't be able to ask for a fee that is actually livable, especially when I know I'm generalizing, but I really see the impact of trauma, particularly in women, as shrinking themselves and not
mm,
being able to charge enough, not being
yes.
able to ask for the sale, not being able to market themselves. It
Mm,
really limits their ability to go out into the world and really own their worth as a business owner. And
yeah.
that will affect, I worked with a lot of men too, and I just see the difference. Like they have no problem being like, yeah, my service is $10,000, it's fine. Where a woman client might be like, oh, can they afford that? I just want to help them. We have all these negative beliefs that we are traumatized the
Yeah.
same way through money. Like the funniest question I ask people to start to think about, like, what were the conversations about money? What was said about it? Just start like brainstorming that. And when they start to see, like, for me, it was, we never have enough. You can't have that. Don't even ask, because you're not going to get it. We can't even pay bills. How could you want to get extras? It was like that huge limitation on my mind of what was possible. Like I never would have thought that I could own a home or have a good job or salary. Anything didn't seem possible to me. So we all have a
Yeah.
different limit. But even on the flip side, like I grew up without money, much money.
Yes.
So I've had a lot of what we call lack or scarcity mindset. But I've also worked with clients who grew up in massive wealth. And so you think, oh, they're fine. No, they're not, because they didn't earn that money.
Yeah.
So then they have a worthiness issue too. Well, it's not my money. I didn't earn it. I've been really privileged. Everything's been handed to me. Do I really deserve it?
Wow. It's all about the stories, like what we were saying. And yeah, I was gonna actually ask you that because yeah, like you went through like poverty when you were a kid, there was a scarcity. So that was your first relationship with money, was, that trauma with money. Like money means trauma, money means a struggle, money means difficulties. So how did you start the journey of like completely changing your story with money, and realizing that you deserved it, that you were worthy of receiving that money, and in the sense of energy of money, we know that money is energy. So
Yes.
allowing yourself to receive it.
And I always preface this with kind, conscious people have more issues with money than anyone. The billionaires and millionaires don't care. And look what they're doing with the
Yeah.
money. They feel fine having it. Money
Yes.
is just expanding who you already are. So if you're a jerk, you're just gonna be more of a jerk.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
a kind, caring person, you're actually going to do good things with the money. So I
Mm,
always want to tell people we have to get more money into the hands of the people who care because they'll actually make a difference. They're going to be the
mm,
ones who donate money, who do good things with it.
mm,
So for me, I always start with the mind, which is doing the money mindset work, which is uncovering and becoming aware of all the negative beliefs, thoughts, and feelings we have about money.
yeah.
Then we have to go to the body, which you understand from the somatic side. Our nervous system will
Yeah.
be reactive around money. Like, you might feel nervous making purchases, or you might feel nervous that you don't have enough in savings, and that will actually put you into a fight or flight, whatever way
Yeah.
you go. We all have a different unique imprint like when it comes to money. And then I believe also that we have to heal money stuff on a soul level, because I don't think we've all just lived one life. I do at this point, and I can't believe I would say it because I used to be super about science, especially in university. I was like a
Yeah.
psychology major and like,
Yeah.
but the more work I've done on the soul, I really believe that spirituality has also got us kind of messed up around money. The Western churches, for example,
Mm,
say things like money is the root of all evil, but I've actually researched that it was supposedly Jesus who said that, but he didn't say that exactly.
mm.
His quote was actually, the love of only money is the root of all evil.
There you go.
So it's
This is so
changing
powerful.
that spiritual relationship with
Yeah.
money and recognizing that I can never be poor enough to help anyone else. That's not me. Being in poverty is not going to help anyone. A lot of people say money is evil. Guess what? Poverty is the most evil thing on the planet. It
Yeah.
creates more pain and more suffering than anything. If you don't have housing and you don't have food and you don't have your basic needs met, there's nothing more evil than that.
Exactly, because as human beings, in order for us to really be able to, I'll say, attract, more of our desires, live the life that we desire, we first need to focus on our basic needs: housing, food, love, belonging, safety.
Yep.
So if we don't
Maslow's
have
hierarchy of needs. Yeah.
exactly, and then we need money for housing, we need money for our to pay for our bills, basic needs, water and electricity. So it's so powerful that we're talking about this, because I started, like when I started doing also my money mindset work, I started seeing my bills as a way for meeting my needs. They are there to support me. They are there
Yeah.
to
Being grateful.
being so grateful, because like thanks to those sources, like I can focus more on who I want to be, on my career, on traveling, on building my desired life. We cannot focus on those things if our basic needs are not met. So we do need
Yes.
money, and is learning to uncovering all these limiting beliefs, the negative stories that we heard not only from our parents, but as you say, from religion, you
Yeah,
know,
religion, society, even particularly women
society.
in money. If
Yeah,
men have a lot of money, they're
yeah,
successful. If women do, we're labeled as negative things.
yes,
I mean, look at, like I always tell people, look at movies. Someone
yeah,
like Miranda Priestley at Vogue, she was evil. She had all this money. Like, women who have money are also portrayed negatively. And we will dim down that and we won't talk about money. And women have been held back from having financial power for thousands of years. And it has tipped the scale of the planet in a negative way, because
yes,
women are more relationship, or they're more relationship oriented, they're more balanced, they care about their
yeah,
communities. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't know this, but the World Bank will give microloans to women because when they do that in third world countries, women create jobs and products. Men often gamble the money away.
Mm.
So I always like just, when it comes to marginalized communities, people of color and women, I'm always like, we've got to tip the scales back to balance. And I study Vedic astrology now, which is the astrology associated with yoga and Ayurveda, which is actually a science. There's no deity to it, but it is very spiritual about being connected to the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
They actually say that the first aim in life is dharma, is like our truth, right? But the
Yeah.
second one is artha in Sanskrit, which means wealth. Why? Because you
Wow.
can't have a spiritual life if you don't have money. And they understood
Yeah.
that. And these texts are 5,000 years old. And that
Wow.
having the pursuit of wealth can be a spiritual practice if we do it in a aligned way. Like I remember I used to have no problem working in corporate and making a lot of money. And then when I started working in my personal practice, I was
Yeah.
terrified to charge people too much. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's so crazy. Like I literally was working for a corporation that, was a great company, but why was it okay for me to charge that there? But if I'm helping someone, I can't charge anything or it's bad. So we have all these mixed messages and they're so unique for all of us. That's why it's good to, I always encourage people to like sit down and do the journaling, like even just writing out like what were the conversations around money? What were the sayings I always heard about money? I have people write money is and then finish that like 10 times. You'll start to get into that subconscious of like, then noticing how does my body feel
Yeah.
when I talk about money or I look at my bank account? Do I want to avoid it? Do I avoid opening my bills? Then we know we've
Yes.
got some money trauma there.
Yeah, love that part. Wow, this is an amazing conversation. And I think is yeah, for me, as you said, like I totally resonate with the part of like the leaving the corporate and starting my own practice. That's actually where I'm at. I recently stepped away from my corporate job to dedicate myself full time to my practice, which is my passion, my mission, my dharma, what I came here to do. So I love that. However, it comes with all the challenges, and the main challenge is the money mindset part, which I'm still working on. Like this is currently what
Oh,
my
I'm always working on it.
yeah, yes, is how you said, like when it comes to ourselves and helping others, is there's a block there of like charging abundantly in a way that I know what I'm gonna charge is gonna also be a energetic match to the results or the value that that person will receive. So is that challenge there, like how much is a whole journey, and I think it's very important we are talking about this story, because then we are opening the conversations for women who are listening to us, that you deserve to earn more, like you deserve to want money in the way of with a purpose, with a vision, with values, because as we've said, women, we usually come with that already. We want to make a good use of money, we want to help others. It comes that side of like the emotional side, the more feminine side. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're a woman and you're also like being wanting to manifest and attract more, is starting to do this work, as Story said, like going to your subconscious beliefs, your stories, and starting to have that awareness that you deserve, you're worthy of money, you're worthy of being abundant. So
Hmm.
yeah, and i
And
i
some
i
women have to start with others too. Like a lot of women
yeah.
will become successful because they've got to support their children or you know what I mean? Like, and that's okay too. But it is coming to that place where we deserve to have money because when we are full, we have so much excess to give. And we take care of you can send your children to better schools, you can have a safe home, you can donate to
Yeah.
causes that matter to your heart, you can feed kids, any whatever
Yeah.
your heart calls you, the more you have, the more you can give. But until we're taken care of, that's what a lot of women don't get. Until you've got adequate savings and your retirement is funded and you have an adequate home, all that stuff, you don't have anything to give. And that's the hardest thing for women to understand because they have a dollar and they want to give away 50 cents.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, is that fine line, right? Between like, yeah, how yeah, in receiving and giving. So it's learning to receive. I think that's a very important one as well for me. When I started doing all this work, is like allowing myself to receive. If I'm not opening the space for more abundance to come. And that's that more abundance in everything, right? In love, in stability, in safety, in money, in success, in health, peace, is learning to receive, and just having that belief that I'm worthy of all these things, that's my birthright. Just by being myself, I deserve this. And not coming from a selfish place where, okay, I'm not gonna then work on anything. I'm just gonna then let things come to me. Is more around, how can I improve myself, work on myself, expand myself, heal my wounds, heal my beliefs. So then that's actually expanding your capacity to receive, becoming a better person. And
Yeah, because you take more aligned action and it just becomes easier. That's the thing.
exactly.
Is you can draw it to you easier. Like the way in which I manifest these days, like of course I'm always doing something,
Yeah.
but I attract most things that people contact me. I don't even know. I mean, my business is almost 100% referrals. I've never really had to advertise.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I wanted to emphasize that a phrase that you said when we started talking about this, that is been on my mind, and I think is so powerful. Your net worth is based on your self-worth.
That's just
So
what I've found to be
powerful.
true.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I will say, because we were talking about, you know, people who are actually very wealthy, who has not done the spiritual work, the personal development work, but Tori and I were talking about genuine abundance, genuine wealth. It comes first from your self-worth.
Yes,
So
because I've worked with people. Now I've met people. I live in Los Angeles. There's some very wealthy people here, right? You think you're doing good, and then the guy next door owns a plane, and you're like, what? But but
yeah.
what I've seen is that they build that money. Their ego is their worth. So they have
Yeah.
a really big ego, right? That's how they're holding that amount of money, is they believe they're worthy of it at this deep level, but it's coming from the level of ego. So I think a lot of pain and sacrifice comes with that. So like I have worked with people who have built amazing businesses. They're very successful, but other areas of their life are really lacking. So
Mm,
that's what I see. So I think when we're talking about this, we're talking about like doing this work too, to grow the money, the business, whatever it is your dream is, the career, and have that abundance with a level of consciousness that you don't sacrifice everything for the money. Because we
yeah.
can all do that when we're unconscious. Like I said, I've worked with people who sacrificed it all for the money, and now they've got this beautiful house in the Hollywood Hills and the big um mansion, and or they've got all the things and the bank accounts, but they're not happy.
Hmm.
So women are not usually willing to sacrifice that, and we tend to have this belief that we're not good with money, that we'll have to sacrifice a lot of something in our personal lives, like we won't be a good mom, we won't be a good wife, we won't be a good daughter if we have money, or if we try to get money. And it's like I want to like shift that into, when we build wealth consciously, we don't sacrifice everything and everyone, including ourselves. we
Yeah.
we build it in a different way.
Yeah, which is like the most important part, right? Like not sacrificing or abandoning ourselves just for the sake of money. So, and I think yeah, a very important one for me that came up was that the more the more money I attract and the more success I attract, then I'm gonna lose the love, acceptance, and belonging from my loved ones. So
Absolutely.
there was this belief that money meant losing the love and acceptance. So do you think that's a very common one, Tori?
I think for women, yes, because we're so relationally focused. And I've
Yeah.
even worked with women business owners who are, they're growing their business, and they will stop themselves when they get to also like where their partner is financially. They won't grow past
Oh,
him
yeah,
because they're afraid of how that would make that him feel. And I'm using that dynamic, but I think it doesn't. I haven't seen it happen as much the opposite. But
yeah,
yeah, I've worked with women who are like pretty, they're doing pretty good, but they'd love to like take it up a little bit, but they're afraid to take it past because they're afraid of how it would affect their relationship. So they'll hold
yeah.
themselves down. So I think it's very common. It just shows up in different ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually had a conversation with my partner the other day where when I was going deeper into my money mindset beliefs, which I said is something that I'm still working on, and I would say like I just started maybe the past years. It's quite a new work for me, and
Mm.
moreover now like dedicating myself full time to my business is a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of stories, a lot of wounds have came up. And when I was doing the deeper work, and I realized, oh wait, yeah, because I think, the more I'm seeing, the more like is like the too muchness wound, like, right, like being too much, being
Oh yeah, I
too
heard that one too.
seen, being too big, being too successful, then I'm gonna, lose the love, acceptance, and belonging from my loved ones, and my partner might leave me. So I actually had to ask him that question. Is like, hey, look, I just identify this. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, of course, it's like, it's a belief. He's like, no, I will be here. We are like building this together. Like, it's not about yeah, it's not about you or me or how much we make. It's like we are a team. So I just needed to know to hear that, to like release it. So now I'm like, okay, but is this work is, as you said, is like constant, and is
It's
allowing
constant.
ourselves, yeah, is but it's beautiful. It's constant, beautiful. Like we expand ourselves in so many ways. And you mentioned something that now I wanted to touch on is manifestation. So you said my way of manifesting is, I just allow it to come. My clients just come, people just reach out to me. So take us on a real, if you have like some steps, or how is that manifestation for Tori? How do you manifest?
Yeah, I really believe that manifestation actually is coming from our subconscious. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why people get confused because they have their vision board, they have what they want, and they're like, it's not coming. And they get really frustrated. And it's because there's something in the subconscious that they're not aware of that's blocking it. And,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be like if you want to manifest a lot of money, but there's really subconscious beliefs that you haven't uncovered. Whatever reality you're manifesting, that is what your subconscious believes to be true. So, like back when I was very much stuck in lack, even when I made a lot of money, I would create lack for myself. I would spend the money.
Yeah.
So even when, I made six figures by the time I was 30 years old. I made it like, I got rid of it, girl. Like I would give it to my family, because they obviously had a problem. I take people on vacations. I spent, luckily I spent a lot on my education. That was great. I put myself through grad school. I paid cash, which was amazing. But I was still living in lack, and so it didn't matter what I was making. So that's what can kind of get confusing about manifesting, because we'll think, oh, I want a great love partner, but it's like a lot of people aren't doing that deep dive into what are the subconscious fears and blocks that can block you from creating that. So if you're not attracting someone over time, because it takes time to manifest money, and it takes time because remember, we're in the, I always like to explain, five-dimensional world is the world of spirit that moves very quickly. Fourth dimension is the mind. Third dimension is physical matter.
Yeah.
Takes the longest to change. So I can change my mind that I want to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
I mean, technically on paper we are, but that's just because we live in California. Our home is worth a lot of money. Uh,
Exactly.
then I've got to allow time to happen. So I have kind of a joking with manifesting. I have 7 steps to it, but I always break it down to this. It's the
Yeah.
ABCs. I have to become aware of what the primary block is. Like, what am I experiencing? Am I always feeling lack? Am I always feeling not enough? Am I attracting all the wrong guys? Because love and money are almost the same, but we'll just use money because it's easy.
Yes.
So if you're attracting bills all the time, you can never save, or if you do save, something happens and then it all goes away. You can't charge, that lack is what's happening. So you have to start looking, what do I believe to be true? Like,
Mm-hmm.
life is always going to be hard. I'm never going to have enough money. Because that was for me, that was always my worry. Even if I had money, it was, I constantly had to work. I'd never have enough. Because even
Yeah.
when I would have it, I would still look at my bank account, like, oh, but something could happen and I would be gone and I don't have enough.
Yeah.
And so this is where a lot of people think like, oh, but I have some money in the bank, I'm fine. And then the third thing we have to do is we have to clear it. So we have to find ways to clear it. And so I'm a big fan of, if you don't have any other tools, you don't have any way to invest, do EFT tapping. You can
Yeah.
Google it. It's all free. It's a great
Yeah.
way to move energy and just do some self work. There's so many great books on money mindset that help take you through a process. But, obviously, if you can invest in a coach or someone who can help you, like
Yeah.
that's my superpower. I'm sure that's Alejandra's superpower is when I sit with you and I hear you talk, I know what your story is. I know what the beliefs are. I can tell you within, 15 minutes usually. And then we go right to it. But I always give people like, it's just the ABCs. So I've got to become aware of what the problem is. I have to find
Yes.
the belief, and then I have to do some kind of clearing work. So that can be praying, it can be meditating, be doing EFT tapping, it can, yoga, like to help move the energy. There's
Yeah.
so many things you can do, and you have to find what works for you. But I've
Beautiful.
had some crazy manifestation stories of like, like we won like $20,000 through sports tickets, crazy stuff that you would never.
Wow.
Yeah, we actually
Wow.
went, that's how we went to Bali the first time was we won money through football tickets.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Yeah, we were talking about the Bali trip. Wow, that's so powerful because yeah, I actually yes, always say to my clients that you have to leave a little bit of time to the universe or to your physical reality to catch up to your new beliefs, to your new sense of being, identity. So as we remove the stories, as we remove the limiting beliefs, as we start bringing that to the awareness, that's the moment that it starts shifting for you. So the
Yes, and
moment
the
you
key is surrender.
surrender, oh, so
Oh,
good
the
that you
moment
mentioned
if
that.
you're attached, that's the one thing I want to say. Like this is the one thing that
Yeah,
I feel like no one talks about, no one gets. If you are attached and you are in
yeah,
desperation, you
Shan.
will not manifest.
Yeah,
Whenever I want something, I literally like, okay, if it's meant to be, it'll work out. If
exactly.
And I remember
Yes,
when I started my practice, I'd kind of freak out and be like, oh my God, I have to take this client. And then they wouldn't
yeah,
sign because I,
yeah,
I was like desperate for that income because I just quit my corporate job and my income, went like
yeah,
this. And I
yes,
was literally afraid. Like,
yeah,
and in that energy, I was not manifesting. I've seen the same thing with women in love when they're desperate for love and they're like, I'm not whole until, I'm so unhappy. I'm so lonely. It's like, of course you are. But
yeah,
until you're okay with yourself, and I always say, if you're building your business and you need a little income on the side or a part-time job, totally fine. You do not want to build from desperation because you
yes,
have to surrender it to the universe and say, divine timing, I trust it's coming.
yeah,
More
100%.
said than done.
And that's because well, we Tori and I, know that this is about energy, right? Like your beliefs have a certain vibration. And this is,
Yeah.
by the way, physics, scientific.
Yeah,
We
it's
are not
science.
talking woo-woo things.
Frequency. No.
Frequency,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Albert
it's
Albert Einstein actually created a lot of
Albert
these
Einstein or
theories.
Joe Dispenza, like one of the books where I started understanding the mind more is how our particles in our brain are just creating with every single thought, because every single particle is energy, and the energy will just be a match of the same level of energy. So when you come from desperation, what happens is you are coming from an energy of scarcity, meaning I don't have it. So what's the message you are sending to the universe? I don't have it. So then you
I
won't
don't
have
have
it.
it.
Exactly. I don't have it. So, and there's this phrase that the first time I heard that phrase is like, this is the wrong phrase. Is the best is yet to come. The more you say that, the more not the best is not gonna come, because
Yeah,
you
you
are
push it
already
away.
pushing it away. Is yet to come. So every time is yet to come. It's like the best is already happening. So then that already comes to you at some point. It's just a matter of allowing the physical reality, your physical realm, to catch up with that new belief. So it, and the other part is the anxious or the avoidant attachment that comes also with money, not only in love. Oh no, I
Yep.
avoid it. I don't want to see, I don't want to see my bills. I don't want to see how money I'm making, because like, this gives me too much anxiety. So it's avoiding that relationship with money, meaning money won't come to you because you're avoiding it. Money comes where it's wanted, welcomed, and celebrated. So same with anxious attachment. If you have an anxious attachment, if you're always thinking that money will slip away, if you're always thinking about how much is this costing, how much is like the milk, how much, no, it's just allow yourself and have the belief that your needs, our desires are always being taken care of. So that's one of
Yeah.
my strong beliefs with money. Like my needs are and desires are always taken care of.
And
And
that's where
how,
the work comes in.
yeah, exactly. And all
Yeah.
this is, is the, yeah, the ongoing beautiful work that Tori and I do, and yeah, we are deeply passionate about. And Tori, how does addressing trauma contribute to building a solid foundation for financial success and abundance?
Yeah, I mean, when you again, we're building, if we're addressing our trauma, we're healing all of these things, and not to say we're going to heal it all, but we're going to start working on the things to release the major blocks so that you can receive money. It changes how you spend, how you save. When you increase your self-worth, you'll be able to charge more. I even work with a lot of people around like the ability to be more visible, to
Yeah,
receive, because it's like if you want to have, particularly if you want to have a business, you have to be able to put yourself out there, and
yeah,
trauma will hold you back from doing that in a bigger way,
yes.
because being unseen is safe, and a lot of people don't
Hmm.
know that they're doing that subconsciously. But addressing the trauma will help you start to feel like you are enough, that you can create enough, and that you're worthy of even more. And that's why I believe personally, I don't ever stop doing money mindset work. I've even read some of the same books that I liked three or at different times in my life, because I'm like, I'm going to uncover something different when I do this work. So
Yeah.
every time I have something come up, I'm like, I'm going to get curious about that and see. Because even when we start to have money, some people say this saying like, new level, new devil. I kind of believe new level, old devil comes back to remind you. so,
Yes.
so we'll kind of, like we were talking about, like the stories that we tell ourselves. So if, like, let's say my story is I never have enough, then that's always going to creep back in, and I'm always going to have to work with that energy of myself, because that was my origin story. That is my core wound, as I never have enough. My needs are not taken care of. So that is something
Exactly.
that no matter how much money I have in the bank, I always fight. And so I just like to tell people that, because I don't want them to think that this will all go away. You just become highly aware, and you have the tools to be like, oh, I'm okay, that's not true, and processing it out instead of keeping it in, because like we were saying, like it shifts your vibration, it shifts your frequency.
Hmm.
And the more alignment you live in, the more quickly things will manifest left or right. I know when I'm off, because things will, like, I'll have a fully like great week, and then people start like weird things will happen. People start canceling, and I'll be like, oh, my energy's off. And I know, like, right then, get back into alignment. Something's off.
Yeah. This is so powerful because it's also bringing the power back to ourselves, that we are
Yes.
the creators of our reality. And I know we hear this a lot, and probably people that are not much into like this world of spirituality and manifestation. And I like to always say manifestation is not this just law of attraction. I repeat things without an intention. It's actually doing the work, is becoming the person that can hold that manifestation. Is the process of becoming or coming back to who you really are, alignment, what you said is the process of coming back to alignment with your true essence that will manifest that. So that's why this manifestation um concept is so beautiful. It's actually coming back to yourself. It's actually the personal development work. And what you said about, like all the challenges that we go through when we start, like, our own journeys in our business. This is that's exactly like being visible. This is so true for me. Like, it was such a big wound of getting myself out there. I actually never wanted to show my face on my account. I never wanted to show who I was. I wanted to do pretty much inspirational quotes, informative content, until like I started working with coaches, and they were like, "Why? You are the person behind. Like, people will get inspired by your story, by your wisdom." And I was like, "No. Why?" And it was actually the wounds, the fears of being judged. So the beautiful part also about manifesting is, and it's all lined up as you all will see, is also self-worth, is coming back to that self-worth. I am worthy of sharing, my story. I am worthy, and not because yours is not worthy. Is everyone's story is worthy. Everything you're going through is unique, and it makes you the person you are. So yeah, I like to see the manifestation process also as like as a way of, coming back to our self-worth and uncovering the wounds, the things that are stopping us, blocking us, keeping us in the playing small, keeping us in the scarcity, keeping us in the anxiety or attachment with money, with love, with abundance, with health, with peace. And it's, yeah, it's uncovering and expanding ourselves. So it's really a beautiful journey.
It is. And there is a Vedic teacher who's very wise. He's written over 30 books on spirituality, and I love how he says that we are powerful creators, but we're responsible for about 70% of what shows up in our life. So we leave
Mhm.
that 30% room to know that, like, obviously we have people around us who have, there's things in life that happen that we have no control over. And but it's recognizing, to me, my definition of spirituality is radical responsibility
Mm,
for my own energy,
beautiful.
so that I can always come back to alignment, and that no matter what's happening, because I've had a lot of challenging things happen to me,
Hmm.
even in my adulthood, I'm in a challenging phase of life in this moment.
Mm,
My husband and I are separating. We're good friends, but we've grown apart, and but I'm ending a 20-year relationship,
yeah.
and it's not an easy walk, but every
Mm,
day I do the work to bring myself back. And we're doing this very peacefully and with
yeah,
love and kindness. And that's not, everyone can't believe we're doing it, but it's like, it's really important to me because I care about this person. But
exactly.
that again takes that inner work of coming back. So I just share that because, like, of course, things are going to happen and we're going to have difficulty, but we can walk through it with grace and with peace if we take that responsibility for ourselves and say, how do I want to show up? How do I want to create this experience? And
Hmm.
know that you do have some agency to help that happen.
Exactly. And yeah, I validate what you're going through. I know that people usually will say I'm sorry, and I will explain you why I'm not saying I'm sorry, because
Yeah.
I know if you identify, both of you, that what is the what is meant for you is not longer a path together. That's powerful. That takes courage, and that takes responsibility. And I know, like, you both, as you said, are separating with love, so conscious uncoupling is challenging. And of course, I want to validate that things will come up, as you know, and you probably already, working on that. But for anyone who is listening and probably going through the same as you, or have been through that, or will go through that, we don't know, is honoring also your path, and knowing that it's okay. It's okay to decide to, separate our ways if our best self, our intuition is saying, we already uh, kind of met the purpose and the mission of being together, and now we have a different path. So
Yeah.
that takes a lot of maturity, responsibility, and is powerful. And I'm sure you both, will find their path. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think is so beautiful. So now I think we've touched so many amazing and inspirational, powerful topics. Let's just close it with what will be your key takeaways from this chat, Tori?
Is that whatever you're looking to create in your life and wherever you feel stuck, having the courage to look at how your past might be affecting your present,
Hmm.
and just doing one thing to start your healing journey, whether that's buy a book, listening to more podcasts, start journaling, meditating. And if you're really brave, working with someone, whoever calls to you, to
Yeah.
really dive in and start your journey. But it all starts with one thing. So just taking that interest in yourself to start the journey.
Yeah, beautiful. I think for me will be, yes, very similar. Just knowing that the more, you come back to yourself, uh, the self-discovery journey of removing the emotional stories, the painful situations that you went through in your past, that they are not who you are, that you, at your essence, you are a being, full of love, full of health, full of wealth, full of peace, that came to this world to experience joy and happiness and fulfillment. So the way to get into a genuine state is is expanding you internally as a human being, and then the rest will just come and take one step at a time. I know Tori and I covered a lot of topics here. If you're just starting in the personal development journey, don't get overwhelmed. It's all about, what works for you, what resonates for you, and start with one thing a day, and that will always, life is beautiful and is perfect in the way it is, imperfectly perfect. That's how I say it.
Hmm.
And yeah, just release control and embrace the journey. So it's the person we become in the journey, and there's always, areas for improvement, knowing that we are already enough from within. So thank you so much, Tori. I really, really value and appreciate your time here in the podcast and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. For the ones who don't know, Tori has multiple certifications and degrees. She's passionate about psychology, and you've done also meditation, yoga certifications, Buddhism. You are a trauma-informed therapist. You are now a coach, a business and mindset coach. So she has extensive knowledge, wisdom, and just also which is more most important, is beautiful, inspiring, empowering woman. So if people would like to contact you, how they can reach out?
Yeah, they can find me at my website at torijenae.com or at Manifest Soul Success on Instagram. So you can just Google Tori Jenae and I'll come up as well.
Beautiful. And I will share your details as well on my Instagram and on the Spotify podcast episode. And my name is Alejandra. I am an emotional healing and somatic trauma practitioner. I also am very passionate about personal development, manifestation, now getting into money mindset topics, business coaching, and all the things. So I'm here to support you. And again, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close, Tori?
Yeah, I just think my message is always just to remind people that no matter what you're going through, what you've been through, you can still create everything that you're looking to do going forward.
Beautiful. Beautiful message to close with. Thank you so much, Tori, and thank you so much for everyone. I will see you all soon in another episode of the Awakened Woman podcast.